Good afternoon once more, everybody. Those of you that are just joining us. Today we are probably going to have a shorter meeting. I tend to say this every time, and then we end up with questions. But today we are really just going to be talking about progress that is being made. The Afghan arrivals, which is really what led to us having this weekly engagement. As we always said, didn't just end with the welcoming part of it. It's actually welcoming and then walking with
All right. Something's going on with the mic. We're getting a harsh buzz. It's going in and out, but.
Is this better?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for bringing that to my attention. I think it was halfway unplugged. Yeah, but I was saying that we essentially the Afghan arrivals, which is what led to us having this engagement weekly and then every other week. Did not just end with arrivals, not just welcoming these families into St. Louis. Really, as we have learned, that there is a lot that goes beyond just welcoming them here. And that's really where we are in now. And several organizations that are here are playing a key role into that. And as time has gone on, we have been shifting this conversation to really match what we're seeing as progress being made or challenges that we face as we go along. So today we're going to really talk about what we see coming down the line and how we are collaborating with partners within the community to be able to address that. And obviously we would have some updates. So that's our agenda today. We'll have obviously our program updates. And then we will talk about legal assistance for the Afghans, which we see as that next phase of the resettlement process. And then we'll just give an update of the World Refugee Day that took place last week, the celebration of World Refugee Day on June 18th here at the International Institute, and of course World Refugee Day on June 20th. Then looking forward to the Festival of Nations coming back in full gear, an update on that. And then we'll talk about how we see the collaboration with organizations evolving to providing service within the community with a volunteer leadership program that we are thinking of introducing. And then obviously we'll have our community shout outs. With that in mind, I would just turn this over to Blake to give us program updates as well as the legal assistance for Afghans. We would touch a little bit on where we are with reference to Ukraine as well, if there are questions in that regard. So Blake, please.
Thank you. Arrival update, going back again to our last meeting on the 8th, we have had 20 additional individuals arrive. That was in the form of 4 cases. There was amongst that one case from Afghanistan that actually did arrive as a refugee. And we're understanding that we might see a bit more of this for Afghan arrivals. We are expecting additional Afghan arrivals to be coming in between now and the end of the federal fiscal year. As we understand, it could be up to an additional 200 arrivals over that period of time. Again, a lot of this is predicated on travel plans and availability, in alignment with refugee resettlement. So if in fact they are aligned as refugees, I think that we understand the path could be a little bit more consistent, whereas if they're arriving under other statuses, we could see theoretically another rush of arrivals the way we did last fall, where we might be resettling 200 in a matter of days or a week or so. So we are continuing to stay vigilant and trying to put our ear to the ground to understand more about the pace of arrivals going forward. Looking ahead, we have about 16 individuals or 10 cases scheduled to arrive in the next 3 weeks, but that does not mean we couldn't be scheduled with new arrivals in the intervening time to have more than 16, of course, in the next 3 weeks. Because as every week goes by, we're seeing more and more getting scheduled. All these scheduled arrivals are refugee arrivals, which means that we are being given adequate time to source housing. The real challenge for us with housing was in relationship to APA, Afghan arrivals coming through the parolee program, us having zero notice. And sometimes the notice was, hey, they're at the airport, go get them. And so, of course, in those circumstances, housing became even more of a challenge. But where we are getting notice, and now that we are getting notice, we're really happy to see that. Moving on to our employment updates, we have had 37 job placements in total added to our placement list since our last meeting. I mentioned in our last meeting that we had experienced a bit of a backlog with placement information that we received from community partners who had assisted folks in getting employment, as well as just our own placements getting caught up as we had staffing limitations. But since our last meeting, we've actually hired an additional job developer who's assisting us with getting folks connected to employment, and they've provided with additional capacity to be entering these. So that's another 37 placements that might have been going back several weeks or a month or so. So this revised number for the going back to the beginning of the federal fiscal year, October 1st, is 157 job placements. So that is our updated number. That's going to be changing on a weekly basis as we work through the backlog of job placements and additionally find jobs for folks that are arriving. So going back though to the 1st of October, our average wage is $15.91 an hour. I believe it was just over 16 the last time we met. That functionally shows that the majority of the placements that were added are still sticking around that average number, though gone down slightly. But we are still seeing a fairly high, relatively high average start rate. And I can say that when we compare this average wage to even a year or two ago, that this is fully $1 or $2, really I think $1.75 an hour higher now than we were seeing in our average job placements just a year ago. So this is an indication of those rising wages that we've seen discussed in many different media platforms. And we're seeing the real impact on new arrivals in their first jobs, and we're happy to see that. So moving on, I do want to touch on our Legal Assistance for Afghans program as funded through the Missouri Office of Refugee Administration. The International Institute is a grantee under this program that will allow us to provide legal assistance. The form that the project is taking here locally is a collaborative model, where our intent is to be able to expand capacity for service across service providers in our region, and our partners on this project will be helping assist in all of these. We'll talk about what that partnership looks like in a moment. But first, I wanted to make mention of what the functions that are allowable services under this project. Are seminars, trainings, and workshops for individuals that are seeking asylum or seeking additional information, not just about asylum, but temporary protective status or special immigrant visas. We can assist through this program as well. We can provide consulting to determine legal assistance needs for cases that are coming through our doors. We can assist with the replacement of lost or damaged immigration documents, or even documents where personal information is incorrect, correcting those documents as well. We can provide interpretation and translation services with the federal funds under this award, not just for the completion of the immigration forms, but in many different circumstances, whether that's the seminars, trainings, and workshops, or the completion of the forms themselves. We can provide direct assistance in completing immigration documents, and we can provide representation for the client in affirmative asylum interview situations or other immigration-related appointment. So that last one, though, was a bit of a new allowance for us under this project. We're happy to see it. So those are the allowable activities under the program. The next slide really shows what other allowable activities there are, as well as what is unallowable. So transportation, lodging, and other immigration fees are all being able to be covered by these federal funds. The transportation and lodging is very much a leniency that was provided as a result of the feedback that organizations like ours provided. St. Louis does not have immigration courts here locally. So that means functionally many of the clients that we're serving, many of the newly arrived Afghans, will have to travel for their day in court to either Chicago or possibly Kansas City. Because we are a circuit ride city, it means that we'll have immigration courts essentially come to us infrequently to provide adjudication of these cases. But those, like I said, those opportunities are infrequent and usually not happening for a long period of time, and therefore unable to really process a large number locally. So it is our best estimate that the vast majority of our clients will be heading out of town for these immigration proceedings once asylum applications are completed. What is unallowable under this project is legal assistance activities pertaining or that are already provided by USCIS, the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, or other federally funded programs or provided by another entity. So as is always the request by our federal funders is that we're not duplicating activities that already exist, whether they are federally funded or not in this circumstance. So functionally what we're offering is slightly different than what is available writ large within the community. And we're happy to be able to enhance the offerings of our partners on the project through this grant. So the next slide shows a bit more about how we are going to use this award. The International Institute is entering into a partnership regionally with organizations in the hope of expanding regional legal assistance capacity. As we've talked about in these meetings going back now 8 months, the legal assistance area is thinly staffed across the region right now, not just with the International Institute, but with the other partners you see listed here. So really it was a priority of us to be able to expand the capacity of other organizations engaging in this space as well. So MICA Project, Catholic Legal Aid Ministries, and BIAS are several of our funded partners on the project, with several other organizations also requesting to be a part of this network as well, including some networks of pro bono attorneys. So these different organizations are growing their capacity in terms of screening Afghans who might be seeking assistance. So each organization will have expanded capacity to provide this screening. The collective has already come together to talk about the screening tool that we'll be using and finalizing that, so that folks seeking this assistance from any organization will go through the same screening tool. Once that screening is complete, the case in question will be referred to either our pro se asylum clinics or assistants within the legal teams of the organizations partnered on the project, or other attorneys that can assist with SIV or temporary protective status. So the thrust of this is the pro bono pro se asylum clinics. Part of this project is going to include not just delivery of service at these clinics through use of pro bono attorneys, but also training, not just for the clients that are going through this to understand what asylum is and kind of what their responsibilities and duties are beyond just submitting an application, but also training for attorneys who are maybe willing to help but not necessarily fully comfortable in providing legal assistance in completing the asylum application or providing advice in that regard. So we are going to be offering a training coming up. Actually, our first one will be scheduled for the 19th with pro bono legal assistance volunteers who want to learn more about asylum. And these are going to be offering continuing education units for those attorneys who are interested. And so that training, again, is not just for our clients in terms of understanding asylum, but also for attorneys who are interested in providing this assistance. This award is going to allow us to provide a full suite of interpretation services for anybody coming to these pro se asylum clinics. So therefore, our attorney network does not need to speak Dari or Pashto or Farsi in order to be able to communicate. Our intent is to have live interpretation where possible, and of course, over the phone or video interpretation where that isn't possible. The funding that we have has been earmarked in part to provide financial assistance for that travel for court appearances. Though we do not have sufficient funding to be able to provide this in full for everybody who might need it. So we have a limited reimbursement that we'll be able to provide for folks who are traveling for court appearances in cities other than St. Louis. We are looking to expand that pool of funds to make those available to everybody who would need to travel outside our region for that day in court. But at present, we're not funded at the level to be able to do all of this 100%. So that's where we've elected to make some cuts that will then allow us to increase our capacity regionally at these various providers, as well as ensuring that we have sufficient language support through this process as well. On our next slide, I believe we have the next slide here. No, it's community update. This, as I mentioned, this program is really in earnest getting kicked off with our initial training of pro bono attorneys on the 19th. If you do have attorneys in your networks, or you yourself are an attorney or a partially accredited rep for immigration applications, we would love to get connected. So if you or someone you know falls under that category, please reach out to me and I can connect you with Catholic Legal Aid Ministries, who's our partner who's coordinating the pro bono legal assistance. And we can give you more information about that event on July 19th. As well as the timeline that we have for pro se asylum clinics upcoming through the rest of the summer. And I should say that this program, though, is funded through current fiscal year funds by the federal government. It is not something that we expect to wrap up by the end of September. We do expect to be able to offer this program in full through at least the end of the calendar year at present. So we're hoping for a lot of uptake with this, a lot of access quickly. We know we've had 600 arrivals to our region. That's 183 cases that might need assistance with this. And of course, through our pro se asylum clinics, we can't handle dozens of individuals at a time through these clinics. It's really maybe a half dozen that we might be able to serve in each clinic. So our goal is to have quite a few clinics between now and the end of the year in order to be able to process these applications. So with your support and your promotion, we're hopeful to be able to really have this collaborative engage in very effective work. One question that we've gotten when discussing this is, well, what happens if Afghan Adjustment Act gets passed? Well, we can very easily pivot these funds to help with that, because Afghan adjustment is not a waving of a magic wand that automatically transfers everybody over to legal permanent resident status or green card, right? That itself is its own application and its own process that these funds can be repurposed for in order to be able to assist with that. But I do want to make mention that while Afghan adjustment would really save a lot of time and energy on everybody's part, including that of our clients, it is right now not a foregone conclusion that is going to happen. In fact, we are hearing from our partners who are working in Washington, D.C., that prospects are actually dimming for the passage of the Afghan Adjustment Act, as there have been several budget packages that have passed where the Afghan adjustment was included only to be removed at the 11th hour, and then that package being passed. There fundamentally is one larger funding package set to be voted on before the end of this Congress. That really truly represents the last opportunity for Afghan adjustment to be included before the next session of Congress is held in January. At that point, we'll have exceeded 1 year of the vast majority of our arrivals, and time will very much be of the essence. But we're also not confident that under next Congress that there would be an opportunity for this act to be included in any spending bill. So we are really hopeful that through advocacy that's happening at the national level, but also on the local level, that we're really talking about the importance of this to our region. Fundamentally allowing 600 folks to be under a temporary status or seek asylum is not a functional way to provide safety that's needed for people to invest in our community long term. The fact of the matter is, without the passage of the Afghan Adjustment Act, many cases will be subject to deportation. And as challenging as it was for our nation to see the efforts in Afghanistan culminate in the fall of Kabul, I do think that it would really qualify as frankly, in my opinion, a national tragedy were we to let these folks be subject to deportation at the expiration of their parole. Likewise, passage through the asylum process is pushing back asylum applications for everybody else who is seeking asylum, as these cases are set to take priority. So folks that have been waiting for several years for their application to be processed are now seeing additional delays. Asylum is, in my opinion, personally, not the proper pathway to be adjudicating these claims. We have other tools at our disposal. I would encourage everybody to, if they feel at all passionately about this, to reach out to their elected representatives and let them know how this impacts us as a region, or you individually, or people you know and care about. So with that, I'll thank you for your time and pass it along to my colleagues to talk about our recent World Refugee Day festivities. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Blake, for that very detailed and thank you for the emphasis on the advocacy work that needs to be done on the Afghan Adjustment Act. I was in Washington 2 weeks ago, and yes, you're very right in terms of how everyone is beginning to feel like the passage of the Afghan Adjustment Act is seeming more and more bleak as time goes on, and that one last opportunity would be with the defense bill. But this is the reason why we're ramping up capacity and planning for the worst while hoping for the best, right? And we hope that happens. But I see that Molly is on here, and I'm counting on people like Molly to continue with the advocacy work in that regard, and leveraging all the networks to help make a point that we need that act passed in Congress. With that, I think we would now go on to Kelly. Kelly, are you taking? Yes, Kelly, for the World Refugee Day update.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks, Blake, for those words. It's always important to stay abreast on what's happening. So thank you. I love hearing those. We had a very successful World Refugee Day this past weekend. There was, as Ray already mentioned, there was a slight break in heat. So it was amazing day. We had indoor and outdoor activities. For those individuals who participated, we think that they learned a lot. We had about 5 hours of entertainment on our stage. The city of St. Louis recognized the day by offering us a proclamation. We had tasty food from refugee vendors. And as many of you know on the call already, this day honors the resilience of refugees around the world. It is a world celebration that was honored in 1951 by the United Nations. And so this was our second year holding an event like this. And it really is part of the core of the work that we do. So we were excited with the nice weather, joyful with the dancing, and everybody had their bellies full with the food. And of course, the advocacy message was out there because we had beautiful learning activities in the inside that took participants through an activity that highlighted the journey some refugees take. And so it was a really good day. Everybody had a great time, and we will continue to honor this day, and we can't wait for it next year. So mark your calendars. It's going to be typically around June 20th is the day. So it will probably be the Saturday before or after June 20th. So I think we have the next big thing coming up that we're really excited for is Festival of Nations is making a comeback in person in Tower Grove Park. So we are extremely excited to be in the throes of planning and preparations for this festival. Here's our brand new logo. I'm so excited for it. So nice colors, and mark your calendars, get out your phones, get out your Outlook calendars. Put in August 27th and 28th for Festival of Nations in Tower Grove Park. We have more people helping us this year, which I'm extremely excited for. And my coworker, Chrissy Durant, is going to be doing all of the volunteer support. So whether you want to volunteer individually, whether you want to bring on your groups, your family members, anybody that you think would love to volunteer, we average around 700 volunteers for those days. One need that we weren't able to really access before COVID was having volunteers on the Monday after. You know, the festival is only 2 days in the park, but staff and volunteers are busy the week before and of course the Monday after. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday is volunteer opportunities. We of course have sponsorship packages that have been sent out already. If you haven't gotten one, you can contact Melissa George for that. And as always, since you guys show up for these calls, you're our primary advocates. So just get the word out that the festival is coming back in person in Tower Grove Park. And maybe we'll have an oddity where it will be somewhat cool temperatures. And Armina posted Melissa's email in the chat. So we're very excited. I'm trying to think. Jacqueline Ballard is our events manager. And if you want any more details that I might have missed, she would be the person to contact for Festival of Nations. But basically, take 2 seconds to put it in your calendars, August 27th and 28th.
Thanks, Kelly. You hit it right on the mark. I'm here with Carlos.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Then I want to introduce that we're doing, I don't know, I think this might be on the next slide, but it's sort of our festival season. Before we get to the volunteer leaders program, I want to make sure that you all know that we are going to be offering the inclusion series again. Last year, Array led a 12-week inclusion series, and it invited different panelists and different industries to talk about how our region can be more inclusive. So Armina and Array are working on this, and I believe our first series will start on July 7th. Do I have that right, Armina? If you have any ideas, or if you have an industry or a group that you think would be an excellent panelist, please reach out to Armina and let us know. But last year that was a successful endeavor, and we plan on doing it again this summer. So the team is busy planning the inclusion series and Festival of Nations, and I can't wait to see you all in person at the festival. So now we can go to the next slide. And this is a program that we are starting at the International Institute called the Volunteer Leaders Program. I can't see the slide because I like to see multiple faces, so I expanded the visuals of you all. But what we've noticed in the last 10 months is that we're better together. We have partners and collaborators that have really helped us through navigating the last 10 months. We know we could not have been as successful in our endeavors without the participation of you all on this call, as well as our volunteers around the community. So in order to continue our successes and to continue the work of our advocacy efforts and our community inclusive efforts, we would like to launch this program for our volunteer leaders. We know that we have many volunteers who have given us many hours of their time, and many of our volunteers and collaborations are now well versed in refugee resettlement and immigration information. Now, we also know, due to Blake's updates, that every day things are changing, right? And every minute there's a new update, there's a new policy. Sometimes I'm even behind on what the latest is. So it's important to empower volunteers and leaders throughout the community to be our advocates and to keep up to date on the information. So what we want to do is pool together volunteers who are ready to take the next step, ready to do more than just the 1 hour a week sorting items. Maybe they're ready to be advocates. They're ready to talk to neighbors about doing more in the community. How can we be inclusive? So we want to really expand our network and have these volunteers take on greater responsibilities and helping us make an inclusive society. So, Array, I would like to mention a little more about the program, and we're excited to launch this.
Thank you, Kelly. I know we're going to be working on the details about this, but this is just an evolution of this collaboration. We think that this is what the community needs, and we want to keep these volunteers engaged. But we also want to empower volunteers to understand the work that we do and help them to be able to build even more volunteers within the community. So we will be sharing a lot more details as we roll this out, working in collaboration with the other organizations. We just wanted to begin to plant the seeds, but hopefully we can build a mighty peaceful army of volunteers in this community that will not only support the work of the International Institute, but absolutely support the work of all the not-for-profit organizations that are doing incredible work. But we will therefore have people with not only the mindset, because most of the volunteers have the mindset, but how do we help them even understand more? Because as we've worked with volunteers, we see some challenges in the relationship building. So we want to be able to, we feel it's our responsibility to provide a lot more, not just resources, but also the mindset of why certain things are done in particular ways, and also to increase our capacity. We are limited in staff that does training, but we want to also build volunteers that become trainers of other volunteers, and that way it's an infrastructure that is there for the community to tap into. So that's what we're thinking with this.
Okay, so
And I see that we're being offered a place to do this. We'll take it. That'd be great. Thanks, Bessie.
so one of my favorite parts of the week is reflecting on the wonderful support we've seen in the last couple weeks. And I'm happy to say that we continue to have support from our partners, collaborators, and neighbors and friends. Thank you so much to the Little Angels Foundation, who was able to do a targeted food drive for families that might need additional food resources. They took it upon themselves to collect appropriate foods and distribute them to families that were in need. So thank you so much. We celebrated about a week with 40 students from the Bethany United Methodist Church. They were ages from 13 to 18. And I'm laughing because it was a fun week. I mean, you know what it's like to work with high school students. They were from South Carolina. They were very good at working, and they did a lot of great heavy lifting, and we converted our gym space back to the gym, and we now have a basement space that is our storage area. So thank you to that group. Along the same lines, you'll see Visitation Academy, McCarthy Construction, and Deloitte came the following week, and they basically helped us finish the project. Thanks to McCarthy for building out, or not building, they destructed a wall and framed it nicely for us. So instead of having 3 separate rooms downstairs in our basement, we now have one large room for sorting, and we can actually see most of the gym floor. Yay! The reason why that was so important was twofold. The heat is upon us and the gym does not have any air condition. That might have been good for my body to lose some weight by sweating in the gym all summer, but instead we now have space to prepare for Festival of Nations, and we also have space to gear up for future projects and other events. So thank you to all of those tremendous volunteers, partnerships, and collaborations. We couldn't have done it without them. I'm just thrilled that we were able to do that. And if you would like to see the gym floor, please come by and visit us. But Deloitte, McCarthy, and Visitation Academy were amazing workers, and they were hot. It was hot. I mean, they happened to be there on a hot week. So kudos to them that they suffered through the heat to get it done. So thank you to anybody who refers volunteers and community groups. John Worth and I, our volunteer coordinator, are in multiple talks with many organizations to continue doing projects. And of course, we have the Festival of Nations, where we rely on groups and volunteers for that as well. So thank you, community. Thank you. Upcoming events. Yes, this is exciting. So I've been gearing up my family to participate in July 2nd, the America's Birthday Parade. This year, the theme, I had not been down to the parade in I haven't been to the parade in a long time. Let me put it this way. I'm usually out of town for this weekend. So I'm excited to go back downtown and see what that parade looks like. The theme this year is Let Freedom Ring. So the International Institute will be walking the parade. We are going to encourage our family and friends, our refugees, our immigrants, our supporters, anybody who would love to take a walk with us. More details to come, but that's what we're going to be doing on July 2nd. Festival of Nations, August 27th and 28th. And community volunteer orientations. So what we have done in the last 2 months, I believe, is we've been able to offer community volunteer information sessions, and John Worth and Carlos are the ones who have been leading these efforts. So I'm going to pass it over to Carlos so he can tell us a little more details about what that is.
Thanks, Kelly. Yeah, our community volunteer orientations, also with John and Blake, we've been working on developing some content to share with volunteers that, one, are working alongside new arrivals, supporting them, educating volunteers also about the services and programs that are provided at the International Institute and how they can best be equipped to supplement the work that's going on here, connect clients with the services and programs, but also how they can best work alongside with the new arrivals as they're here in St. Louis. So that's the gist of the volunteer orientation. We've been hosting basically 2-hour sessions to really just inform, educate, and equip volunteers with more information so that they can work alongside the new arrivals. We have some more that are coming up, and we'll be sharing more dates here soon as those get confirmed. But we appreciate everyone, and especially our partners that have supported participation in these community volunteer orientations. And just to continue from for opportunities for support, for those that are interested in working with a family, we have our community support program. We're still working with public transportation for new arrivals and volunteers to support that. We have also on our website mock interviews and need assistance with volunteers to sign up for that, for job interview workshops. And then of course we have our Festival of Nations coming up. That's also included on our website for volunteers. Some needs that we have in the current moment include some box fans or household fans, irons, and laundry detergent, as well as size 1 and 2 diapers. And of course, we're accepting grocery gift cards, Schnucks and Aldi. And want to thank everyone for your current donations and donations in the future to the TAO Fund, which goes directly to support refugees and new arrivals here in St. Louis. Again, just for links for your information, the International Institute's website /volunteer to sign up for volunteering with our specific opportunities that we have available. Also with our community support program to connect with WAFA. For more on the youth side of programming and volunteers for our youth, that's also listed on our website, but you can reach out to Catherine. And for groups, specifically for groups that want to volunteer for the Festival of Nations, please reach out to Chrissy Durant. And then of course, if you'd like to donate to the Institute, go to our website /donate. We're extremely grateful for everyone's contributions that made all this work possible. Again, social media to help amplify the message that we have going on and celebrating World Refugee Day, preparing for Festival of Nations, and continual advocacy support, advocacy for our work. Also on our YouTube channel with previous community update calls for reference, and just basic social media across the board is supported. So thank you all very much, and I'll pass it back on to Ari.
Thank you very much, Carlos and Kelly. At this point, we have a few minutes for any questions with reference to the subject matter that's been covered here today, primarily updates on arrivals, the legal assistance, and the collaboration within the community. Any questions? I don't see any in the chat at this point. If we do not have any questions, then we'll stop it. Just quickly, with reference to, I see Bessie as well, any updates on the Ukraine situation. I know that there is access to some programs for Ukraine, and Blake, if you would like to talk about that, then Ukraine arrivals, you can share on that. And we're looking forward to some more updates. I think we have a meeting that is being announced for us to get more updates on potential funding for resettlement of Ukrainians in the St. Louis region. We don't know how that is going to play out, but I know it's coming. It's a conversation that we've been notified we're going to be having soon, and how we plan to manage that. But in the meantime, obviously, we have Ukrainians that are here that have access to some of our programming. I'll have Blake talk about that.
Yeah, so we have begun to see some Ukrainian arrivals, not through any traditional means or through the International Institute. The Unite for Ukraine program is for individual sponsorship, where an individual can petition for, in many cases it's reunification. It's somebody that they know, a direct family member abroad that they're petitioning to have folks come over. We're starting to see some in our region, though we are not anywhere near the top 50 of metros that are seeing these arrivals through individual sponsorship. This is not going to be the primary means by which Ukrainians arrive, though, to the United States. This is meant to be a small program, which will likely wrap up very soon. The next phase of Ukrainian resettlement will functionally be either as humanitarian parolees or through the refugee system. And so what I already mentioned in terms of the federal support for this, there are right now negotiations happening about how can local resettlement agencies support these folks that are arriving with humanitarian parole through Unite for Ukraine program. The expectation is that parole will be not just available for these folks coming through this program, but maybe others who are more formalized in a similar but not the same way as Afghans arrive through parole. Will those folks arriving through parole as from Ukraine be able to arrive through resettlement agencies going forward? And that really has yet to be determined. But I think it's a good sign that we're hearing from the federal government that they are considering funding mechanisms to allow the International Institute and other resettlement agencies to provide case management services and support similar to that refugees receive upon arrival, and similar to what was created for Afghans, right? Afghan parolees had an entirely new program created for them to support them through case management and individual stipends, much in the same way that refugees have. And so this would, though, require, again, another allocation of funds in order to be able to do the same thing for Ukrainians, if it's going to exist outside of our current model for resettlement. So we're encouraged to hear that we can we should expect more clarification on that soon, in terms of what that mechanism looks like, what are those funding pathways in order to be able to support folks more robustly. But I think this is a good point for me to say that we are currently serving Ukrainians who've arrived, and though we can't offer that individualized case management the way that newly arrived refugees or Afghans have received it, there are plenty of other programming areas right now where we're assisting folks get jobs, enroll in English class, access healthcare, et cetera, et cetera. So we are still providing the supports to folks who are coming through our doors. This funding, though, would allow us to provide a little bit more intensive case management and also allow for funds to support resettlement of Ukrainians should that get assigned. So we're optimistic that the funds will be able to be used to support not just the folks who are already here, but also the folks who will be coming. And folks will be coming. But as soon as we have more information about when and in what volume, of course, to stay tuned to this space to get that info.
Great, thank you very much, Blake, for that, and Betsy, thank you for bringing up that question.
Yeah, because we're getting, every week I get calls from 1 or 2 families that have had people arriving and they suddenly don't know what to do. And, again, it's the trickle. And so I'm really heartened to hear that there may be some other bigger thoughts from our government and funding. So that's very helpful. Thank you.
Great. With that, if I don't see any question in the chat here, I think the question from George is being responded by George. Once we have more details and update, we'll advise you on that, but that's something that we're working on. And if you have any thoughts or ideas of ways in which we could collaborate around that, please feel free. This would be a collaborative effort. So thank you very much for the time today. Thank you all for being here. Thanks for your continuous support and interest in our work for this community. Until we'll talk to you again 2 weeks from now. Until then, please have a wonderful week ahead of you. Thank you all.